That's how peaceful the United States warmongering machine is.
United America, who's that?
Well, at the end of the 23rd century, America attempted to bring peace to the world by asking every nation on Earth to sign a peace treaty. Any nation that refused, they invaded. Now, a war ensued that was called the War Against War. Those countries who went to war, because they were so against war, they were prepared to go to war to fight in a war against war, called themselves United America.
Yeah, that's right, everybody. And I want to get right to it. Okay, we're going to start off with, you got it, of course, what we remember Kash Patel told us a while back.
No credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday.
That's right. So let's go back to yesterday. Yesterday, Kash Patel was lying all the way. Yes, it seems that time has come today. Oh, I believe he lied today. He lies virtually every day. And of course, Donald Trump doesn't want to talk about the Epstein information.
Epstein files, but I do want to ask you to clarify something you said this morning. You said this was all a hoax. Has your Attorney General told you this was a hoax? What evidence have you seen?
It's not the Attorney General. No, I know it's a hoax. It's started by Democrats. It's been run by the Democrats for 4 years. You had Christopher Wray and these.
Well, guess what, Donald? No, it was run by the CIA and Mossad for decades. And a lot of people have been harmed by it. A lot of people made a lot of money off it in banking, in international corporations, and a lot of politicians got into office. And they have been playing very tightly with their commanders from the Mossad and Israel for a long, long time. Even people who gave Barack Obama his Nobel Peace Prize are named as having been very, very close with the Epstein files. So let's get into it, everybody. Let's talk about Epstein. Now, if you go to the news notes, we've got a lot covered with the news notes as far as the wars, immigration, and some very important information about just how heavy the welfare burden of those migrants is. And of course, just, say how much in taxes migrants pay. Some interesting studies from the Cato Institute. We're going to get to all those, plus the information about Ukraine and Iran, but let's start with the Epstein files, and this isn't even all of it. The information keeps flowing and revealing terrible plots, terrible monetary and political ties, and terrible predation, and excuses that reflect poorly on many people. Let's begin with this. Hans Monkey writes this. Wow. The original 56-page draft federal indictment of Epstein from 2007, hello, Alex Acosta, is horrific. 32 counts involving 17 minor girls. Oh, but when you get contacted by a man named Barr who says CIA intelligence operation, well, then just reduce it down to soliciting prostitution with a minor. Put a bracelet on. You can come and go as you will. And of course, continue to set up your friends, own your ranch in Arizona where you're doing weird genetic experiments. Yes, Alex Acosta agreed to drop all of it for a single state-level solicitation charge. We can't bring Epstein back. Who knows? Maybe he's vacationing somewhere and waiting for Ghislaine to get released. But if I had any say, I'd be turning and let's go over here to this. I'd be turning the screws on Acosta to understand exactly how this was allowed to happen. It's hard to believe that he made that decision on his own. There's a story there, and maybe it even explains how 10 years later he ended up as Trump's labor secretary. How does something like that happen? Well, it kind of is maybe like a former Barack Obama official in direct communication with Mr. Epstein and then going to work for Goldman Sachs. Yeah, get this. Obama's White House counsel, as I noted on the news notes, you'll see this. I said, a year after she left, as she headed to Goldman Sachs, guess what she did? Of course, Lord Bebo, Obama's White House counsel legal advice to Epstein, quote, I think the point is that if she was underage, she could not legally consent to engaging in prostitution. Obama's former White House counsel gave Epstein legal advice on sex with minors. And then guess who hired her? Yes, Goldman Sachs. Epstein, to her, if girl X continues to claim that she had sex with people for money, why is that not prostitution? And what I pled guilty to. There's nothing like being an obfuscator for yourself. Don't be officious. Stop beating around the bush. And as Lord Bebo writes, for every message a person got, she was paid, or he continues. Epstein says, for every massage a person got, she was paid money. No girl came to the house to learn math. Does sex for money change the equation? Dude, they're underage. It's called rape. There was a massage person every day. Some turned out to be younger than others, some as old as 60. I'll explain when I see you. In other words, when I meet you in person, former Obama White House legal counsel. Is anybody talking about this? Kathy, quote, I think the point is that if she was underage, she could not legally consent, to engage in prostitution. Do you get it, Epstein? Epstein, she claims Dershowitz is overage. Are you deflecting? Are you hearing what this woman is telling you? Kathy, but if she claims she was coerced into it when underage, then any consent given when of age is probably not valid as a legal matter. Epstein, she says she received money, nothing else. Do you get what's going on, Mr. Epstein? Catherine Rumler, oh, yeah, by the way, she's a big pro-Zionist, is now chief legal officer and general counsel of Goldman Sachs. Then we've got this. Here you can see Mitch Weber of Harvard giving Epstein advice on how to legally traffic minors for sex. Epstein, let's also look at sex tourism laws, going someplace with specific intent, or have underage sex. It says OT, it's supposed to be or. And he gives him advice on that. What you are asking on the phone, I see that you are asking now. The question is, what would happen if one were to transport a minor for sex or transport oneself with the intent to have sex with a minor into a state in which the age of consent is below 18, assuming the minor is above the age of consent of the given state? Yeah, you know, I think we're starting to discover that the number of people who have been involved in higher echelon banking, who have been involved with various administrations and various departments of justice, the CIA, the Mossad, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and prosecutors like Alex Acosta have been so aware of the vastness and depth of this depravity. And I'm not even going into the accusations of human cannibalism and the dark satanic cult stuff that we've heard that seems to tie in with the pizza stuff. Who knows? I'm just talking about the simple, you broke the statutes and you harmed a lot of people. There are so many people who know of this. I think there are massive numbers of people who have been well aware for a long time this is how the game operates, and that these people have been some of the biggest string pullers and reins holders in the history of this country in the past 50 years, and a lot of people knew it. Going back to George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Joe Biden and his clan, the people who were spokespeople at the White House, and Donald Trump, and his coterie of people like Howard Lutnick, Mr. Lucky, and people like Jared Kushner, who had Mr. Epstein as a teacher. 56 pages reduced down to one. Now, To get more in depth, let's go into this. Of course, there are long-standing reports of Israeli intel work. Confirmed. Epstein trained, of course, as we discussed Friday and yesterday. Epstein trained as a spy under Israeli Prime Minister, as per unclassified FBI CHS report. That would be under Ehud Barak. Yes, of course. And he was probably brought into it by the Barr family. We'll go into this. This links to Trump in so many ways. The guy who was giving Epstein advice, as we said, on how to exploit jurisdictional differences in age of consent laws to have sex with minors without technically violating federal trafficking statutes was, yes, don't forget, that man that we just mentioned, that communication. Yeah, this is the other shoe that drops. Here it is. He was associate counsel and special assistant to the president during Trump's first term and is currently on the board of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. He used his Harvard Law School.edu email address to talk about trafficking women to islands and sex tourism. That is what we just read. Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, they have to have been aware of this. Keir Starmer admits, yes, I too was aware. And remember how I mentioned that the House of Lords was shaking over Peter Mandelson? Well, here's more. As we said, there's a lot more that's going to be coming up. Starmer had to hide his hands and stop them from shaking while talking about Peter Mandelson during PMQs. Now, why? That's Prime Minister questions. Why? Because when he brought him into his administration and stayed friends with Mr. Mendelson, he was aware that Mr. Mendelson was friends with Epstein long after Epstein's conviction for having sex with a minor, knowing he was a child predator. Check this out.
When we knew this, I asked him at that dispatch box, he gave Mandelson his full confidence at that dispatch box, not once, but twice. He only sacked him after pressure from us. I am asking the Prime Minister something very specific, not about the generalities of the full extent. Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
So clear. Prime Minister.
Yes, it did. As a result, various questions were put to him. I intend to disclose to this House all of the national security, prejudice to international relations on one side. I want to make sure this House sees the full documentation, so it will see for itself the extent to which time and time again Mandelson completely misrepresented the extent of his relationship with Epstein and lied throughout the process.
So let's just notice his deflection. She asked him, were you aware of Mandelson, who is in the House of Lords and has played other major parts inside this guy's administration? Were you aware of his association long after Epstein's conviction for child predation? Yes, I was. He admits it. Then he says, but you've got to understand the context. We didn't know how much he had lied. Dude, you just frigging admitted his association with him and knowing that he was a child predator. It doesn't matter what else you say. You just admitted it. This guy's going. He's out. He's gone.
Including in response to the due diligence.
Mr. Speaker, I think it is shocking what the Prime Minister has just said. How can he stand up there saying that he knew, but he just asked Peter Mandelson if the security vetting was true or false? This is a man who had been sacked from cabinet twice already for unethical behavior. That is absolutely shocking. And that is why later today, my party will call on the government to release all documents relating to Mandelson's appointment, not just the ones the Prime Minister wants us to see.
That's going to be epic. It's going to be huge. If they get the documents, folks, Starmer's gone. He is so gone. He's real gone, as Elvis would say. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Now, let's talk about some other major figures in the news and their deceptiveness. We're going to go over into, you got it, my friends, a few others that you will probably recognize. Like, oh, look at this man. Let's stop attacking pedophiles. Is that a slip of the tongue?
And tragically, this pattern keeps on happening. Now, Senator Booker also said we should have bipartisan agreement. I think that's a great idea. We should have bipartisan agreement. How about we all come together and say, let's stop murders? How about we all come together and say, let's stop rape? How about we all come together and say, let's stop attacking pedophiles?
Whoops. Okay, Mr. Cruz. Well, we all know you're a giant Christian Zionist and that you seemed to have no problem, although you too had to have been aware of what the Mossad has been doing and the CIA does on their back channels to blackmail people. There's no way you could be a senator involved with all you've been involved with assistance as close to the Israelis as they are without you knowing about Jeffrey Epstein. Where did you stand? That slip of the tongue says a lot, and I often don't care too much about slips of the tongue. But that one tells me a lot. Now, let's talk about this guy and his viper's tongue, the poison man. Yes, that's right. That's right. This man, of course, Bill Gates, tries to say that, well, you know, I disconnected from him. I had nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm.
No, apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there. It just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that.
Okay. Well, his wife is speaking up. His wife has something to say. And Mr. Gates, as we know, continued to hang out with that guy long after it was very well known that he was associated with pedophilia. He had been found guilty of hanging out with underage girls, and at least you could know that. And yet he still cozied up to this guy, as did high officials from MIT, professors from Harvard, and many others inside the British government and the United States government. Well, here is what Melinda French Gates says, and I want to give this to you first. It's just one of these little items that has some background writing, and then they actually go to her quote. So we'll get her quote in just a minute. Melinda French calls out ex-Bill Gates over newly revealed Jeffrey Epstein emails. All right, so here we go. I don't know whether to feel sorry for this woman or not. You obviously can offer me your thoughts. You let me know what you think. Melinda addressed the emails and Bill's relationship with Epstein in an NPR podcast interview. Emails show Epstein claimed Bill contracted a sexually transmitted infection from Russian girls. No, emails show that, yes, emails show Epstein claimed that. Yes, absolutely right. But we don't know whether it's true. We do know that Gates hung out with him after his convictions. In the files, Epstein said Bill asked him for antibiotics he could surreptitiously give to Melinda. A spokesperson for Bill called the claims absolutely absurd and completely false. Let me ask you a question. Was there ever any other sign that they weren't getting along well? So why would Epstein write that? Again, can't be sure, but here's more. But Melinda thinks we're having a reckoning as a society, and her ex has some questions to answer. So she had no problem being married to him during all the vax, the mosquito experimentation, all that other stuff, his statements about reducing the population. Now she thinks we're having a reckoning as a society. Oh, okay.
Whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things.
Okay, well, I'm not one for body analysis as she pushes it away, but it seemed to me that I'm aware of it and I don't want people to approach me on it. I feel very uncomfortable because I already knew. That's what I think. But then again, there's a lot more. There's a lot more than that. So let's go over to this. Of course, Noam Chomsky. This is, for those people who are big fans of Noam Chomsky, I've always had big mixed feelings about the guy. He claims he's an anarchist, but doesn't seem to mind government if it's a socialist government. This email from Chomsky giving advice to Epstein in 2019 on how to beat the allegations is truly horrifying. This is completely indefensible from Ryan Grimm. Good job. Thank you, Ryan. Here's this from Para Power Mapping. Noam Chomsky giving Epstein advice on how to outlast the pedophilia allegations against him. Anyone running interference for Chomsky at this point needs to be thrown in the garbage bin. Positively despicable. Let me read this to you. From Matthew Hildstick to Jay, that's you know who, Mr. Epstein. Thoughts from Chomsky. Now, this is secondhand. I think that is wise. Okay. These are related from Noam, supposedly. Okay. But they've come through an intermediary. So Noam still has that as an excuse. Well, they went through my assistant. Okay. I've watched the horrible, this is Chomsky, reportedly. I've watched the horrible way you are being treated in the press and public. This is from 2019. It's painful to say, but I think the best way to proceed is to ignore it. I've had plenty of experience, though of course not on this scale. A Google search will bring up tons of hysterical accusations of all sorts, even groups devoted to vilifying me. I pay no attention unless I'm approached for a comment on a specific matter. It's a nuisance, but it's the best way. The same conclusions from experiences of others, in some cases close friends. What the vultures dearly want is a public response, which then provides a public opening for an onslaught of venomous attacks, many from just publicity seekers or cranks of all sorts, which are impossible to answer. Parentheses, how do you prove that you are not a neo-Nazi who wants to kill the Jews, or a rapist, or whatever charge comes along? That's ironic that he's talking to the hardcore pro-Zionist who supported the occupation and extermination of the Palestinians. That's particularly true now with the hysteria that has developed about abuse of women, which has reached the point that even questioning a charge is a crime worse than murder. Now, there is some validity to the sentiment that he's expressing, especially at that time, 2019, the whole believe the victim without question sort of thing. But a simple search on the part of Mr. Chomsky or maybe his assistant might have set up some red flags to Mr. Chomsky to say, gee, I wish that I couldn't believe these accusations, but it looks to me like you've been involved with some skeezy stuff. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to let some time go by before I'm back in touch with you. How close were these guys? For virtually everyone who sees any of this, the reaction will be, where there's smoke, there's fire, maybe raging fire. Yeah, well, you could have looked it up there, Noam. I thought you were a scholar, an academic. Now, again, it's possible that he just left himself ignorant. It's possible. All right. But let's look at Deepak Chopra. And Natalie Morris nailed it this morning in the redacted email that I get every morning, thanks to the good people at Redacted. And they send it out at like 20 minutes of 5 in the morning. Natalie Morris of Redacted nails it regarding whom? Deepak Chopra. Quote from Natalie. One of the more shocking email exchanges from the Epstein files is this one from spiritual, wink, wink, leader Deepak Chopra. He says that God is a construct. That's a quote direct. But, quote, cute girls are real, end quote. He asks if Epstein had found him a cute Israeli. I remember at the bookstore where I worked, we had a lot of those Deepak Chopra books. And I would try to ward people away from Deepak Chopra. Natalie writes, it's hard to imagine a more complete collapse of the public persona Chopra spent decades cultivating. This was a man who preached transcendence, detachment from desire, and moral clarity. The real question isn't just how Chopra recovers from this. Who cares if he does or does not? The question is how so many people trusted him to guide their inner lives for so long and how they missed that he was into such unsavory behavior. And there's Deepak Chopra. Now, there is so much more. Want to say hi to Marty. Howdy, Marty. Great to see you, brother. Great to see you, dude. Thank you for being there. It's at times like this I appreciate the positive vibes. Now, we've got a lot more to get into. Let's talk about crypto. If you didn't already hear about this, there is word, and I'm just going to review this briefly. There is word that the Mossad was heavily involved with manipulating Coinbase, with many people working at Coinbase. David mentioned this, and heavily involved with manipulating crypto. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. I also want to mention this. This one is a pretty big one. Unbelievable. There's so much stuff. So much stuff. Oh, man. It's just disgusting. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. The lies of these people. And wait till we get the economic information out there again, because we're going to look at Besson just lying through his teeth. Doesn't care at all. We'll finish off with this one just briefly. We're going to go into some of the warfare coverage of this, of course. The great mystery of our time. Who is Epstein working for? Epstein. I'm a Jew and have an Israeli citizenship. All my friends, investors, and close associates are Jewish and have an Israeli citizenship. All my friends are from academia are Jews with an Israeli citizenship who are enthusiastic Zionists, just like Mr. Maxwell was. I worked closely with main AIPAC power figures and similar organizations in other countries. I spoke on behalf of Israel with foreign governments and helped to mediate deals for Israel. I represent the Rothschilds. Here are my favorite Talmud quotes. I deal regularly with a former Israeli prime minister. The same media, Western media, that never reported Epstein's crimes, writes Aaron Mizrah, and connections, and actively helps to conceal Israel's crimes. Clearly, Epstein was a Russia spy, he says. This is what they keep pushing. Of course, they keep pushing. Yes, that's right. Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father, who was laid to rest in the most prestigious Jewish cemetery in the whole world, Jerusalem's Mount Olive, when former presidents, prime ministers, and uniquely big Zionist figures are all where they're all buried. His funeral was attended by both then Prime Minister Shamir and President Herzog and many other dignitaries. And the pop media, as we discussed on Monday, we put this in the news notes. I put this into the Sunday News Assembly as well. We talked about how the British press, the Daily Mail, was like, it's Russia. And yet, as we discussed on Monday, there's no citation that says that he was working with Vladimir Putin at all. It's about how he was trying to work with Russian mafia to try to get influence and push people into Putin's circles. And it didn't work. Amazing. But you know where it did work? Don't forget Goldman Sachs. What a shocker. Don't forget, every Treasury Secretary, except for a couple, in the past 40 years have been associated in some way with Goldman Sachs. Which gets us to a big one about the lies of the Treasury Secretary. I want to talk about the economy briefly and some of the lies of the United States government. And then we're going to go into the immigration police state, because I want to show you some of the things that are happening there as the U.S. government in the Senate voted through the spending package that will cover the United States until this coming fall. But I want to talk about lying and Mr. Besant and the claims of this guy as we get into the economy. So let's hear from the Sons of Hercules, and then we'll talk warfare and get your comments about Epstein and many other things. Let me ask you this. People like Virginia Giuffre, do you think she committed suicide? Or do you think she was killed? Do you think Epstein is alive? There's word that somebody who worked at that penitentiary said that they moved him out. Do you think that Ghislaine Maxwell will get an easy time off? Do you think that Donald Trump knew all along and that he's been very close with the Epsteins and the Jewish people who have been in charge of Epstein? Let's talk Sons of Hercules, get into the economy, and get your opinions right after that with something key from you at The Conspiracy. All right. Thank you very much, Sons of Hercules. By the way, saw notation. Oh, yes. Karen Carpenter. Chopra like Gandhi and Dalai Lama, perhaps. Well, you know, I know the rumors about Gandhi. I don't know how much of that has been confirmed. And I've heard the rumors about the Dalai Lama as well. But Chopra, it's right there. And I also want to show you just the documentation, just in case you're wondering about the crypto information. We're talking about, let me see, Joy Ito. And this, Israeli Mossad controls Bitcoin and Epstein was funding the developers. Now, there's a lot more to this. We'll discuss this tomorrow night. But just to go here, from 2015, Jeffrey Epstein talking about a lot of the digital currency initiative as they were going to work their way into Coinbase digital currency initiative. As Bitcoin and digital currencies have started to become an important trend, the Media Lab has launched an initiative in the space. Okay, so the Media Lab, that's at MIT. Then we've got this. The way that Bitcoin is organized currently is that there are 5 core developers and around 100 contributors to the core code. The 5 core developers are like Linus Torvalds of Linux. They decide what changes are made to the core code. One of the 5 is the lead developer, Vladimir, and is the chief scientist, Gavin. Gavin, Vladimir, and Corey, an important contributing developer, were being paid out of a nonprofit organization called the Bitcoin Foundation. A few weeks ago, it declared the foundation, it blew up when one of the board members declared the foundation bankrupt. Well, many organizations scrambled to step into the vacuum created by the foundation and take control of the developers. We moved quickly, taking all of the various stakeholders, and 3 developers decided to join the Media Lab. This is a big win for us. This was his connection to Bitcoin. As it was open source, people dropped out, they went in.